Well, that's definitely not a penis.
See, I called your band a whore.
A lot of times people look at me like this jackass that's just terrible to work with.
Welcome to the 11D Life podcast.
What's up, 11D Lifers, and welcome to this week's episode of 11D Life. My name is Matt. For those of you who are new and just joining us, a big shout out to everybody over at the 11D Life Facebook group. You guys are literally making me tear up this week with the really kind things that you're posting on there, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait for you guys to hear this week's episode because I get to sit down with my friend Mikey Carvajal from a band called Islander that a lot of you have probably already heard of. I am leaving a link to his super rad music in the show notes. I'm a big fan of their band, and for some reason, it seems like Mikey and I sort of grew up parallel to one another, specifically like in Greenville, South Carolina, and our bands went on to do totally different things, but for whatever reason, we never became bros, and I'm not really sure why. We talk about that in the conversation too. This was one of my favorite talks that we've had all month. It got really vulnerable. It was fun. It got real. All the tropes that people say about conversations that actually mean something. Hey, a huge thank you to everybody who is heading over to Spotify and clicking on that follow button for our band and checking out our latest album, Rad Science. We are so grateful for everybody who's putting their ears on this stuff, because it's amazingly fun for us to make and to be a part of. We love doing this podcast, talking to other people who are doing the same thing, and we love when new people find their way into this weird, wacky, and wild little community that we have here in our little corner of the internet and the world and of music. Hey, if you're really enjoying these episodes of 11D Life, or you're enjoying the music that you're getting to listen to through this show, you can support what we're doing here in a very tangible way by heading over to the Rock Candy Recordings online store, checking out all of the music and merch and everything that we have there for everything happening within the Rock Candy universe. We really hate the idea of ads and selling you things that you don't need and that you don't care about and wasting your time. We consider your attention very important, and we take it seriously when we're editing the show and we're figuring out what we want the episodes to be about. If you're enjoying what you're hearing and you want to be able to support it, head on over there, because every single thing that you purchase in this online store helps to keep this podcast going and us making albums. So a huge thank you to everybody who's already doing that. Hey, one more thing, and then I promise we'll get on with the show, because you know how I get long-winded on these things. Davey and I are going to be at the One Stop in Asheville, North Carolina this weekend, actually tomorrow. So this episode will air on Friday. The next night, we are teaming up with an organization called Emo Raleigh, and we are going to have an emo night here in Asheville. For those of you who are confused about what is happening at this night, we are not doing a live set. We won't be playing 11D7 songs, but we will be showing up to high five and hang out and be nerdy with everybody else who was super into 2000s emo rock. And it's going to be a fun time to just show up, hang out, swap stories, sing some songs together. It's just kind of a fun emo karaoke sort of moment that we're going to have this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I actually have no idea what to expect. This is the first time that we've ever tried anything like this, and we felt very honored to be invited to be a part of this show. So anyway, hope that we see you there, and you're going to love this conversation that I have with Mikey. Super fun dude, great heart, and I had the best time just catching up with him and swapping stories and comparing notes on life, love, rock and roll, medication, and guilt. You're gonna love it. On with the show.
Yo.
Hey, dude.
How's it going?
Good.
Awesome.
Did you find a cool little quiet place to do the podcast in? Okay.
I think so. Let me put my headphones in too.
Yeah.
Let me see if this works. Okay, can you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
That's actually better.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I just put in the headphones.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm just like checking levels real quick to make sure.
All good.
Yeah. Sweet. So let me do this real quick. I'll just count to 3, and if you'll just give me like a clap, or actually you can do, or a snap.
Or
it's fine. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Awesome.
Awesome.
Latency is so much fun to deal with in these interviews.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I called it an interview. I really shouldn't. It's more of just a conversation. I don't know if you've ever checked out the podcast or not. We kind of like it when people haven't.
I listened to, after you hit me up, I listened to a little bit of one of them. And,
okay, cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So
awesome. Right on, dude. Well, hey, what are you up to?
I'm just chilling, man. We're off tour. I'm home. I'm bored. Been writing some music. Been hanging out with my dog. So that's about it.
What's your dog's name?
Charlie.
That's awesome. What kind of dog is he?
He's a long-haired Chihuahua, but he thinks he's a human or a cat. And I don't like cats, but I like Charlie. Hey, Charlie.
I totally thought that was a cat.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really chill, though. He doesn't bark or anything. Anytime I tell people he's a Chihuahua, they're like, oh, but he's real yippy. And I'm like, dude, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't make noises. This is it.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I am most definitely a dog person. I don't know what it is about cats. I don't like them. They don't like me. I don't wish any ill will on cats. I'm glad they're here for the cat people. But also, like, if you're a cat person, I remember when I was like, I knew when I was like 16 or 17, I was like, I probably won't end up with a cat person.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I'm deathly allergic to them either. Like, I can't be around them. So
you and me both. Not quite to like the death, to the death toll, but yeah, I don't do so well with cats either. Yeah, I always feel like they seem like they're hiding something.
Oh yeah, they're jerks. They would totally just, if they could drive and go buy their own food and stuff, they would do that.
Yeah. It's totally true because they have this look in their eye like, I know how to cure cancer.
Yeah.
But you're not getting it out of me.
Yeah. That's what I feel about cats.
That's awesome, dude. Cool. So you said you were writing new stuff. How do you, because when we were texting the other day, you were like, yeah, I don't really have an interface, or most of the guys that we sort of deal with or that we talk to or like in our friend group, we're sort of obsessed with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I found it really interesting because I don't know how to write without it. I don't know how to write without like having some sort of device to like multi-track and throw different ideas on and like move shit around,
right?
Like as I'm doing it. So what does that look like for you?
For me, it is the voice memo on my iPhone, and I just come up with melodies or lyric ideas, and I get all those down, and then I pick up an acoustic guitar and kind of just, I call them doodles. I doodle, and then I hand them to the actual people in the band that can actually play instruments, and I say, Febreze this, so fix it.
Oh my gosh. Did you grow up playing guitar? Like, did you take an interest in guitar? Or you're just like, okay, so to be able to get these melody ideas down and not seem like a total jackass to the rest of the band, I can like...
Yeah, I never had lessons or learned how to really play. It was just always for me. I learned a few chords, and I figured out that I could make different melodies with my voice based off of those few chords. So then I would just I would kind of do that, and I got really into synthesizers, which is funny because I know that you're really into that too.
Oh yeah.
So synth pop is actually like my favorite type of music, and
nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of the world I even like used to write more on little microchord or whatever, but I just, yeah. And all of this, the music I listen to, like, as far as like writing influences, is always real simple music. Like the melodies from Joy Electric or the drums, which used to be, you might have heard of Goat Explosion.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can't believe we're already taking this like a crazy deep dive into like these bizarre bands that like only you and I would know about.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I saw Goat Explosion and Joy Electric at Clemson University in South Carolina.
I was there.
You were there?
I was there. I was at that show.
Me
Was
too,
2003,
man.
2004?
Yeah, nobody was really there. So I'm glad that you were one of the people that was there.
Do you remember the guy that put on that show? I think his name was Jimmy.
Yeah,
Jimmy
I
Sorrells?
know Jimmy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure this is like interesting for everybody listening. Doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff, but yeah, I remember Goat Explosion playing, and I remember my parents had taken me to that Joy Electric show, And it was like, I begged them. I'm not sure why I didn't have a car at this point. Maybe it was like 2002 or something.
It was
like,
something.
It was like old school.
Yeah, I think it was 2002.
Yeah. And like Ronnie never toured.
Yeah.
And so whenever he came to Clemson, I was like, I just begged my parents, and I got there and it was like this makeshift PA. Do you remember that?
Yep.
It was just like the shittiest sounding thing.
Yeah.
And he got on stage after Goat Explosion. I just remember being completely entranced with the whole experience. But his music was like so influential on me because it was like blew my mind that somebody could take one synthesizer and make an entire record.
Absolutely.
Just off this one thing.
Yeah. Robot Rock was always my personal favorite just because every song on it, the melodies, just it felt very magical and Christmassy and all that stuff to me. And so that's my favorite type of music probably.
Yeah.
So,
man.
So do you know about the drums? Like you've heard of them?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
What is it? Graham?
It was Jacob. Yeah, Jacob Graham used to be in it, and then now it's Johnny Pierce.
Yeah.
The original Goat Explosion guys.
And then they were on this. They were in this. You know this already. They were in this band called Elkland that was like on Columbia for a hot second.
Yeah.
And I thought they were gonna bring everything cool about the '80s back overnight. And I saw like one video on television. I have not seen hide nor hair of them since.
Yeah. Elkland just kind of disappeared. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but I loved everything. I loved the aesthetic. I loved that they were playing these like super old, out of tune synthesizers on stage.
Absolutely.
Oh man, it was so much fun. So actually, I wanted to ask you this because I feel like you've been on my peripheral vision for years, and we played. I think Jelly Rocks played like one show with Islander.
Yeah.
Like in 2014 or 15 or something. In Greenville. It was a festival or something, and everything was just like super fast and crazy that day, and we've never got the chance to sit down. But I feel like when we were coming up in the like 2000s, I would hear your name in different places. Like were you in and out of band? Like I feel like we're supposed to know each other, but we don't.
I agree. The first time, you probably don't remember this at all, but my first experience with you was
oh God.
Yeah, no.
I'm so nervous.
I was in a local band called Red Sky, and I remember you were in Denny's with some people, and we met, and I told you I was in Red Sky, and you said, "Oh, you guys are like the local whore. Everybody's been up in that," because we had a bunch of different band members.
What the fuck?
That was my first experience with you, which is funny because Islanders kind of like that in a sense of the whorish thing, if you want to say that, because we've had so many members as well.
I'm so embarrassed.
No, you're good.
Why are you on? Why are you even doing this show with me right now?
You're good, man.
That sounds so ridiculous. Like I mean, I know you can't like rewrite your own history, but God, if I could go back and do that over again, I would have. I had zero filter, tact, anything.
No, I didn't take
whatsoever.
it as a slight or anything. I just thought it was funny.
Okay, hopefully I like high-fived you after that and winked or something.
Yeah, you like shook my hand or something. I was like, it's good to meet you, because you were an 11-7 and I knew what that was. And actually, when I worked at Hot Topic, y'all's drummer came in and I helped him put like an outfit together.
Oh my God!
I worked at the Haywood Mall in Greenville, and y'all's drummer came in, and I remember I thought it was so cool because he had a Dingy's patch or something on his jacket.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's like one of the weird things is like being in 11D and going through the whole like Christian music scene, and then coming out of it. And then now, like a lot of what this podcast is about is kind of us being like, we don't want anything to do with it anymore. Right. And it's a much bigger discussion about spirituality and where we all fit into it, and crime and corruption and and all these other fun, sexy things to talk about. But at the end of the day, I can say that all of that, all the shit coming out of like Tooth and Nail in the 2000s, even like late 90s. Yeah. There was such a cool community of people. Like, it really didn't matter how much you agreed or disagreed with somebody. There was probably a Tooth and Nail band that you were both into.
I'm a firm believer that a lot of those bands were some of the best bands ever, and they're never going to get noticed or weren't noticed because, like, for instance, like for one of my favorites is Starflyer 59.
Oh,
and
God.
I feel as though if they had been on Sub Pop or something instead, they would have broken through. And I just think it's just it's just sad that a lot of those bands didn't. Okay, here's a perfect example. Going back to the drums, Goat Explosion came up in like the Christian world, and now Johnny, he is a atheist and a very like outspoken homosexual, and he still they did like some kind of article. I can't remember if it was Billboard or Rolling Stone. I can't remember, but it was really cool because they asked them the music they grew up listening to, and he still put all those bands in the forefront and said, it's not about whether you agree or disagree with their message. They were great bands, whether it be Joy Electric. He named Starflyer 59. He named Zayo. He named all these bands, and it was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because even me being a Christian, it's like, just because, Deftones or somebody doesn't believe what I believe, like those are my favorite bands. And so I thought it was cool that he still was like, no, these bands were better.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because I grew up in a pretty strict religious household. Did you have the whole, like, my parents didn't even want me listening to Christian music because they were like, these people look weird. These people don't look like they love the Lord. And it was just like, that was their world. It was so small. And I think they were just trying to keep me from going down the wrong path, whatever the wrong path is.
Yeah.
I think maybe they're all kind of the right path at the end of the day. But like, did you have a similar experience? Like, were your parents super strict about what kind of art you were exposed to as a kid?
No.
No, that's great.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was always, for me, it was like my mom, she loved Janis Joplin and like Elvis or the Beatles or whatever. Just she always enjoyed art for the sake of art. And as far as what we believed, that came in a different way of like, okay, well, these people believe this and these people believe this, but it doesn't make their art bad. And so my mom was always really supportive of me playing music. And my parents never were like, what is this saying? Or what is that saying? I think that it was just more, if I were into something crazy, I think she would have mentioned something, but I had friends that were having to hide Zayo records or, actually a mutual friend of ours, Daniel Tapp, he probably doesn't mind me mentioning this now, but he used to hide a Mudvayne CD under his bed.
I would have completely forgotten about Mudvayne if you hadn't mentioned them.
So I never had to hide music from my parents or anything. So
man, that's a load off.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's why I never had to rebel against anything or whatever, because it was just all kind of like I could have those open conversations, or if I was listening to something and I didn't know what it meant, I could ask, and then I could decide, like if that was something I should be listening to, or if that was something that people with integrity would want to keep putting in their minds, or whatever. So
that's crazy, dude. Were your parents religious at all? Like outside of the art thing, like were they like Protestant Southern? Moms and dads?
They're Christians, but the thing is, my family is so different because my dad is from the Dominican Republic, and he moved down to South Carolina from Queens, New York. Yeah. And so there was already like a little bit difference of like culture where he felt put off a lot by, I think, the Southern community in general. And, people would call him the N-word and ask him how he knew how to speak Spanish in like the 70s. In South Carolina.
Oh my God.
Because he's dark skinned, and like for instance, like my family looks like Alfonso Ribeiro from Fresh Prince, Carlton. He's Dominican, and and it's like everybody. That's why they got him to play the black white dude, because he didn't have any of the features, but he had the color. And, so that's kind of how my family looks. But my mom's white, and she's a Southern girl, and they. What was the question? I'm sorry, I got off on the race thing, and I started. No,
we were talking about. So I was asking you about if your parents were religious
Christians.
Growing up. Yeah.
They were definitely. We were raised in a Christian home, but we were never. It was never forced on us. I didn't become a Christian until I was 18, I believe, or 19.
Okay.
So that was later in life when I gave my life to the Lord. But as far as like going to church or, Sunday school and drinking the little orange, like juice that they would give us with animal cracker, I did all that stuff. I knew all about the puppet Gerbert and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my God. Okay, so did you listen to Adventures in Odyssey?
Yeah, dude.
The radio show?
Yeah. I loved all that.
That's so funny. Our friend Kevin, who's been on the show a few times, he worked for Adventures in Odyssey for a little while. Yeah. It was he's got some cool behind the scenes story. Actually, like I don't even know if this is like breach of contract with him, but he's basically like, of all the things that he thought were like weird or fucked up about that organization working there, he was like, the cool thing was that people producing that radio show just really did care about the quality of the radio show. So a lot of the people that were voice actors like on that show and still are, do a lot of other high profile stuff like in Hollywood on cartoons and like and different stuff. Yeah, like Jess Harnell's on that show. He was Wacko and the Animaniacs.
Really?
And just like, yeah, and I don't think like any of them would identify as being Christian,
right.
But they're just like, this is a fun story to be a part of, and like
that's really cool.
So anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sweet too. So did you tell me yesterday that you're in Indiana now?
Yeah.
So no more Greenville.
I miss Greenville so much though. I still, like, when I claim, people say, where are you from? Like, I don't go, oh yeah, I'm from Indiana. Because well, of course I'm not from Indiana, but I don't even mention I live there really. I'm from South Carolina. I'm a Greenville, South Carolina boy. That's my roots. And it's, we're still trying to get back there right now. It's just, my wife, she accepted a job up here. She's a dean of students at a all girls boarding school. And
oh my God.
Yeah, so we moved up here. I've been on tour so much, though, I don't really feel like I know the area that well still. I just know there's a lot of cornfields.
What's the town?
It's called... I never like to tell people because I feel like people are going to come try to find me.
Dude, we're from Lawrence, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed.
All right. No, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of where I live. I live in Lafayette, Indiana.
Yeah.
When I moved here, this place is so tiny, I guess, they put me on the front page of the paper and were like, metal vocalist relocates to Lafayette, Indiana. Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, congratulations. It does make you wonder, like, what the hell kind of news happens in this town?
Yeah, for me to make the front page.
So, oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married?
A little over 7.5 years.
Oh my God. You and I must have got married at like the exact same.
So you've been married 7.5?
No, like November of 2010.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
January 2011. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, that's
awesome.
Crazy. Are you don't back yourself into a corner. Are you enjoying it so far?
I think it's good. Yeah. I mean, oh wait, I thought you were talking about Lafayette still. I'm sorry.
No, marriage.
No, marriage is fantastic. The first 3 years of our marriage were terrible. Like if for us personally, if we weren't Christians, we would have been divorced. But our belief and our faith and our convictions is what kept us together. We didn't understand what marriage was. I think that we thought that, it was going to make us happy or whatever. And we went to this marriage counseling thing, or this marriage retreat, and we learned that marriage for us, what we believe, is to make us holy and not happy. So we just started serving each other, and I was like, cool, like even if we don't like each other right now, I'm just going to choose to love her. And she did the same for me, and I started feeling respected. Yeah. And eventually we actually started really liking each other. Now we're still really like each other. People are like, oh, they think it's funny if people are like, oh, you guys are married. Like, yeah, we actually really like each other. Like, oh, I hope you love each other. I'm like, it's more to like each other. Like we really like spending time together, and those first few years were really difficult, and we didn't like spending time together. So anybody out there struggling with that, man, stick to it.
Man, that's so funny because at this point, actually, how old are you? We have to be close to the same age.
I'm 30. I'll be 33 in December.
Yes. Okay. I'll be 33 in November.
Okay. Hey, how are we not best friends in Greenville?
I don't know.
We like all the same bands, and we're married, and we're the same age.
I don't know. That's all it takes. Just three similarities, and I don't know why we're not besties.
I know.
It was like
just for all the listeners. I know you can't see us, but
yeah,
your shirt right now is like my favorite thing about this whole podcast right now. It's E.T. and the Gremlins, and hey, I love it.
Yeah. There's so many people have forgotten about the movie Short Circuit, but I'll never forget Johnny Number 5.
Yeah, dude.
It's the first time I've seen somebody beat the shit out of a robot and I cried. I was inconsolable the first time. Oh my God.
Yeah,
stop.
I love that. I love that movie, man.
Oh man. So Jessica and I were talking about this a couple nights ago. Actually, we were like, we had some friends over and we were all kind of like comparing stories about marriage, and particularly because a lot of these people that were over had come from like Christian colleges, and they were like, it's just real, like they're still single or they're dating and they're our age, but they're like, everybody that grew up in this subculture with us has this idea about marriage that somehow marriage is like what God, like you've been told since a young age, like marriage is what God wants for you. This is what your life looks like. You're surrounded by people in power positions at churches that are like, you know, for lack of a better term, like pastors that sort of paint this picture of what your life should look like because they're on stage, and so their wives are so like on board with everything that they're doing, you know. And they're like, it's just this weird sort of candy coated relationship that I feel like they sort of flaunt in the name of Christ,
right?
And then everybody else is sort of sitting there going, but that's what. So you have these people that have given into this idea that like, I want a baby, I want marriage, I want a husband, I want this
sex, put it bluntly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That too. Like, I want this sort of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And almost like the human connection or the person that you're marrying is sort of gets treated more as an accessory.
Oh, absolutely.
And not, you know what I mean? Like, you're getting married to fulfill what you think is like this vision of yourself that you think is you at your happiest, but it has nothing to do with like loving someone out of a true, like, intimate desire to be close with them, to be connected, to be human with each other.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I think that, a lot of times, even, you know, like going back to the sex thing, it's as Christians, you know, and I do believe this. I personally believe that, you know, you shouldn't be sexually active till marriage, and then once you're married, it should be only with your spouse. But I think a lot of times it's just because we want sex, and that's why we're running so fast to be married, because we want to do that and not feel guilt or whatever. I think a lot of times that's what Christians, you know, they feel the rush of, I got to go find a wife ASAP. And I think once you get married, it gets switched around, and you realize, you know, sex isn't the thing that is going to make you eternally happy.
I've literally talked to people that were like, because of the situation, and I know it's totally different for everybody, and for people that didn't grow up in the church, this might not make any sense. I've literally had conversations with people where they're like, I got married because I felt so guilty for jerking off all the time, and I thought everybody told me this was the right and healthy and correct way to channel my sexuality into the world or into another person, and they're like, I had no business getting married. It was like, what I really needed to do was go to therapy and figure out why my life was so racked with guilt. And then like you think that like this connection with this other person is going to somehow alleviate you from that. I don't know. It's so complicated. Everybody's at a weird different place. I don't know if we can zoom out far enough to really see the whole story with all that stuff. Yeah,
totally. It's definitely, marriage is it's a simple and yet complicated thing.
Yeah. What do you actually, speaking of guilt, so one of the things we like to do is just have amazingly uncomfortable conversations on the podcast. Because they kind of make us happier. I think
people like to listen to people being uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, because for me, it's really cathartic. Was there ever something that what's the thing that you feel the most guilt for?
man.
That's a super personal question. You can totally lobby back if you need to.
I think there's things I wish I could change about, the things that sometimes people, I've never understood this. People, and I get it to an extent, but people say, "Oh, I would never change anything because it made me the person I am." And it's like, I would be a much better person if I didn't do the things that made me the person I am. Like, maybe I would be more ignorant to who I was, but at the same time, it's like we shouldn't just go and do stupid things and bad things so we can make us the person we are today. And
sure.
I think for me, all my guilt for me, I believe has been erased because I believe I can speak freely about what my struggles are.
Yeah.
But as far as like my biggest struggle growing up, I was introduced to pornography at a very young age at my friend's house when I was
Who isn't?
Yeah, absolutely.
At a young age.
Yeah, I was in 5th grade, and I remember my friend's video game room. Like, his parents had like this playroom or whatever for him, and I don't know why they thought this would be the place to keep their collection of Playboy and Penthouse, but there was a shelf that was obviously not hidden. It was just like on display, like a collection.
Yeah.
And what little boy isn't going to want to see, "Oh, I've never seen a naked woman. Yeah, show me."
Oh yeah,
like,
it's completely like, it's just unbridled curiosity. You're just like, yeah, I totally get that.
So I still remember the first naked picture I ever seen. Like, it was burnt in my brain. Like, I remember what it looked like, and I don't remember what issue of Playboy it was, but I remember specifically. I was like, "Oh, well, that's definitely not a penis," and just putting it bluntly.
That's the best soundbite ever. Well, yeah, that's not a penis.
Yeah, so yeah, that became a struggle early on because they were actually like, and this is like, mid 90s. Internet's not hugely popular yet. It's just now kind of catching on. If you're going to watch porn on the computer, it's going to take like 30 minutes to load a picture. But I remember that his family also, his dad worked in computers and stuff, and they had access to the internet, and they had the Playboy channel and all this stuff that I was like, wow, this is a different universe. And I didn't realize at the time. And actually later in life, I realized that, and I've forgiven these people of keeping that around or whatever, but when is it considered sexual abuse? At what point? Because for me, I was introduced to something that definitely my brain wasn't ready to even comprehend.
Sure.
As a 5th grader, and yeah, I just think that I dealt with a sense of emotional or mental, I guess, sexual abuse in that sense, that it gave me this addiction to grow up with, and it was just definitely something that, I've never been into drugs or alcohol as far as like getting wasted or whatever. Like, it's never been my thing. For me, I'm a creature of the visual aspect. I'm an artist, so I see shapes on a woman. I see how beautiful that is. But again, when I accepted Christ, He started changing my desires, and I couldn't live without guilt for doing those things. Going back to guilt, I couldn't. So I started feeling guilty if I would look at something I shouldn't be, or think about something I shouldn't, and that's what started giving me new desires. I see sex as something way different now than when I was in 5th grade. So.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Absolutely. I don't know anybody personally that hasn't kind of gone through that weird phase of like, okay, look, you can pretty much like assume that almost every kid, I mean, unless you're just like out in the middle of nowhere being homeschooled by just a compound of nothing but your family, like, you will be exposed to that. And if you're not exposed to something in secret, you'll get exposed to it in public. You'll get, you know what I mean? Like, you run into people with different standard sets and different ideals. I think that on the flip side of that, there's been what I experienced was so much of this weird sort of like sexual shaming that would happen in church, where it was like people only ever wanted to talk about pornography and how bad it was, and only wanted to talk about like how, like, you know, you should almost kind of like be ashamed of your sexuality, like cover yourself up, like the whole modesty conversation, the whole but what you're actually doing, I feel like, or what I experienced in that was like, you're making teenagers who are already kind of confused about what sexuality is and what kind of power it has over them and over other people. You're making them move even farther into unsafe territory, because you're giving them false information about their bodies and about sexuality and connection, and you're just making it about how shameful everything is.
Yeah, I think that I believe in modesty, but I also believe that until a person is a Christian, I don't believe that they have any reason to live like they are one. So for those of us that have, you know, accepted Jesus and are given new desires, if you're not given a new desire for that, like, what desire is there going to be to go and be like, cool, yeah, I should act like a Christian. I should be like a Christian. And I think something that churches don't talk about is something actually my wife brought up to me one time when we were dating, was a lot of women and men probably too are into emotional pornography, which is, you know, whether it be romance novels or whatever. Just because it's not a picture doesn't mean it's not painting a picture in our mind. I think a lot of times we get too focused on the visual aspect and the physical aspect of our sexuality, more than we should. Also the emotional aspect, because I feel like even when people delve into an affair, it always usually starts emotionally. And I think our emotions are something we really need to guard and be modest in our emotions and our, you know what I mean? Like what we share with people as far as what parts of us we share, because I believe that for me, like sex after I became a Christian, it's like the Lord handed me a Christmas present under the tree and said, hey, don't open this until Christmas. And then you want to just go and know what's in it. And so it's tempting, because it's like, if parents put a Christmas present under the tree and they say, don't open it, even if you take the bow off and you don't even know what's inside yet, they're going to be upset with you for going and tampering with it at all. And it's just because they want you to be surprised and be so stoked when you finally see what they got you. It's not them just being a jerk. It's like, dude, I got you this gift, and now you're just wanting to open it and be like, oh, cool. And then on Christmas morning, you're going to be like, well, what else do I get? Speaking of,
funny.
I remember I did that one time when Nintendo 64 came out. My mom bought us Wave Race 64, and I found it in her closet. And I used to go and I started opening it, and I would slide it out of the package and play it when she wasn't home, and then go slide it back in. So sex is kind of like Wave Race 64. You shouldn't open it until Christmas.
Oh my God. Okay, so I love comparing sex to Wave Race 64, because I remember that game pretty fondly from my childhood too. There's no way to not make innuendos fondly. I remember that game. But so the other side of that is what helps me to put this into perspective for me. Like, what do I think about it now? Sometimes I have to have an imaginary child, and I think about if I had a son or a daughter and they had grown up in the same, like getting the same information that I got, what I would want them to know from the bottom of my heart was this is one way of viewing sexuality, but if you choose to view sexuality within the confines of Christianity, what I need for you to know is that your self-worth and your identity, your sexual worth and your sexual beauty is not tied up in your virginity.
Right. If
you don't have that, it doesn't mean you're less of a person.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you're not as acceptable. It doesn't mean that God looks at you differently. If God cares about those things, I don't know. Like, so I don't like, I hate that people's identities get so tied up in sexuality when I'm like, it just seems like there's so much more to the human experience than sort of focusing on this one facet of it.
We make sex this mysterious thing that we can't talk about with kids. And, I think that's a lot of times why they want to end up experiencing certain aspects of it, because for instance, for me, if I was just sat down and my parents did great with me, but at the same time, if I had been sat down and just, hey, there's this thing called sex and I'm going to explain to you every single thing about what it's for and why it exists. And
like
it's
the most awkward conversation you could have with your parents ever.
And it's like, maybe it was so awkward because we made it awkward. I think sex, we should just make it more of a comfortable topic for people to talk about. I believe that God made it and I believe it's awesome. And I also believe that people shouldn't feel ashamed to talk about it. So,
yeah. So in terms of like, of vices, I feel like there were a lot of things that I experienced, like touring a lot of disillusionment that I experienced just in life and in the music industry and all these different things. And I always think it's interesting to talk to people about what their vices are, because I still have a massive amount of them.
Of course.
that I'm working through. But I find it interesting because one person's vice is another person's freedom from a vice, a revelation of something different about themselves. I have a really hard time, like for instance, I have a really hard time. I go through these weird phases where I'll go like 3 or 4 weeks being my best self, just like really loving the trajectory that I'm on. I'm like running, doing cardio, like I've got writing time set in the studio. I'll have a good session. We'll have like, I'll write a song or a hook or something that I'm super proud of. And not only that, but I'm like cutting the grass. I'm like sweeping when I'm not supposed to. I'm unloading the dishwasher, doing a lot of home shit that everyone appreciates.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like over the course of a weekend, I'll be like, well, maybe I'll have a cigarette or maybe I'll just have like a drink. And then before I know it, like 3 or 4 days have gone by and I've gone through packs of cigarettes and like so much alcohol. And part of it is like, part of me feels like, oh, so I love drinking as a social function and I love smoking as a social function. But I also realize I'm super anxious. Like I have a lot of anxiety. And so I feel more comfortable when I can sort of like deaden the noise a little bit. And there've been different ways that I've sort of combated that over the years, but I don't feel like I'm in my stasis, like in front of people. Like I'm not at my equilibrium when I'm on stage or in front of people. I feel like the whole reason I wanted to be on stage in the first place and like sing in a band was because I was terrified of it. And I didn't want to live my life being afraid of that. And so I swing in the other direction to prove to myself that I'm not afraid of it. And I've discovered a lot of really amazing things about myself, but it's a stressor. It's something I've had to get better at. So all that to say, I feel like everybody kind of has these weird little struggles, these little things. But I swing really hard. And I don't know if you're the same way, but it seems like it's been sort of a recurring theme with other band guys, particularly lead singers that I've met over the years and talked to, that it's just sort of like we not only swing emotionally, but we swing physically with health and habits, and like it can become a hard. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, or if you've experienced that.
I definitely deal with depression, anxiety. I take medicine now. I'm on Lexapro and I'm on Inderol. The Lexapro, it's helped really balance out the chemicals in my brain. So much so, if anybody that knows me knows I'm terrified of roller coasters. And not just the roller coasters, but standing in the line to get to them, because my anxiety of the claustrophobia and all that starts kind of taking over.
God, you and me both, dude. I can't believe you said roller coasters. That's like open water and roller coasters are my bucket list.
Yeah, man. I've gotten to a place where I enjoy some of them, and a lot of it is I believe thanks to Lexapro. I'm not like a spokesperson or whatever. I just it's helped me. It's helped me like balance out the chemicals in my brain. And some people say, oh, like it's changing who you are or whatever. Like for me, it's never taken away the creativity. I was always scared to go to a doctor and talk about medicine because I was scared that it was going to make me a zombie. And it's actually helped me be able to process more of what I am thinking and deal with my anger. I've had anger issues. It's just helped me to be able to slow down and say, okay, like I'm going to be able to actually use my brain to think now rather than just feel. and standing in line now for a roller coaster, usually I feel more like of an anticipation, like of excitement instead of fear. And beforehand, it was the kind of thing where I would almost not be able to breathe. And if I got on an airplane, I would actually start crying because I felt like the last thing I wanted to do was be like locked in this flying toothpaste tube in the air. Like that's what I always think it looks like. But now I can get on a plane and just chill. And there was a while I was prescribed Xanax, or half a Xanax to get on planes. And I just didn't like, number one, what I was seeing happen to a lot of people in the industry that were on Xanax.
Sure.
And also I started realizing it just made me more sleepy than anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be on something like that. But as far as like Lexapro and Inderal helps with the symptoms of feeling anxious, whether it be a increased heart rate or things like that. It's
so what's your like triggers for this? Because this actually sounds like something that you've been through a bunch of different medication. You had to have gone through these different cycles of like when do you remember a clear breaking point where you were like, shit, I've got to do I need help?
We would be touring, and it would be to the point where I would almost have a panic attack when we were riding in the van, and I would feel like I was trapped inside of this box. And we would actually have to pull the van over, and I would walk up and down the interstate just trying to breathe.
Yeah.
And I haven't had to do that in like 2 years.
Congratulations.
So, thanks. I appreciate it. It's really helped me out. I've actually suggested it to friends, and I've seen it help my friends. And I'm on a very small dosage of it as well. And I'm not somebody that believes in self-medicating, and a lot of my friends, and whether it be weed or self-medicating through alcohol,
sure.
they've come to a place where it's more of like, okay, that's become your addiction, and you claim that you have to have these things to feel normal. Yet when you do these things, you're not normal. You're like a mean friend, or you say things that you shouldn't, or whatever. And it's like, I've noticed with Lexapro, it's not like that. Like even like doing this podcast today, like I felt a little nervous because I number one, I hate being on camera, and I knew that I know that this is just audio, but yeah, for those listening, we're me and Matt are looking at each other through FaceTime. So that was weird for me. Even shooting music videos, like I hate shooting music videos now. It makes me feel weird when I'm in front of the camera.
What is it about there's so many people mention this on the podcast. There's something about you put a camera, like, yeah, we can be having the best time ever, and all of a sudden, like, there's a third eye in the room, and it's like, fuck, what do I do now?
Yeah.
It like mutes all the cool parts of you.
It does. It really does. And I think that a lot of it's because we can see like in FaceTime anyway, I can see myself. I know other people are going to see me if I'm in a camera. It makes me self-conscious, I guess. And when I'm not on camera, I'm go with the flow. Even when we're on stage and I'm not being filmed for like a music video, I feel more free. Like I don't feel like I'm being examined in every single way or whatever. But
so what is it that makes you feel self-conscious? Like I kind of want to chase this down for a second. Like when a camera's on you, it's almost like people are taking still frames of a moment in your life. They're recording this moment in your life. Right. Is it that everybody sort of innately kind of feels insecure about who they are? And then when the camera's on, it's just kind of raw. And you're like, oh shit, I don't get to decide who I am in front of the camera right now. It's just picking it up.
Exactly. And I think that's what it is. Like for me, it could be, whether it's aesthetically, if I'm looking good that day or what I think is looking good for me. And then I'm so used to seeing a backwards view of myself in a mirror. When I see me on a camera, I'm seeing what other people see. So it's like, I actually look a little different than I do in the mirror, because I'm used to just seeing the other, like the reverse. So I think that's a little bit of it. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just, and you don't know who's going to see it, because I don't know. It's just, I don't know the answer, but I know that I feel weird.
I have a theory. For me, I feel like it's a little bit narcissistic. It's not being able to control the narrative of how you're being perceived by other people.
I think so. I think you're right, man.
Like what I was saying earlier. And so it's like, And so for me, it's like, well, I don't want to be afraid of that. Like, I don't want, so again, just like in the same way that I have all these things that I'm like, oh, I'm terrified of this. I have to try it. I have to go out there and prove to myself that I'm not going to live with this weird bullshit around me, that I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not going to have a good time or connect with, I'm going to miss out on human connection with other people because I can't get my internal shit together. And so that makes me want to be in front of cameras more. It makes me want to figure out what it is about, what it is that I'm so anxious about, because I just want to feel peaceful. And I feel like the best version of myself would be, just put the camera on at any given point. You just kind of get what you get. I've said things on this podcast before that I'm like embarrassed that I said, or I made the wrong joke, or I made somebody feel weird with something that I said. And part of me, it feels so cathartic because it's like, if I said it, I said it.
Right.
If I did it, it's out there and I can just deal with it because it's so against the grain of what I feel like the rest of the world is, which is like everything's photoshopped, everything's edited.
See, that brings up another good point, because I feel like you're absolutely right. We can't control what we're going to be perceived as in that sense, and you can't go back and give a disclaimer about what you said. People just take it at face value, and I think that's where a lot of people live in fear of even having fun at shows lately, because people have their phones and like, I'm scared I'm going to turn into somebody's freaking meme and my life's going to be ruined because of Facebook and Instagram. And I think that even racial things, there's things that have been said where maybe somebody that said something that sounds racist isn't racist.
Right.
And we perceive it that way because they didn't get to just give it a disclaimer. They felt like they were having a conversation, and people say, oh, there's no way that blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I don't know. I just feel like there's things sometimes where if we can't fully explain what we meant or express ourselves, people can just play it over and over again and come up with their own idea of what it is we were saying. So yeah, I agree. I think that's why I hate being on camera. Somebody's going to say I meant something I didn't, or
I wish I didn't care. I wish I could say that I didn't care, you know, like I wish I could say that I have the confidence that I want. Yeah. It's like, well, so what if you misinterpret what I said? So what if I said something and you took it out of context? Like life goes on. Like but the air is so thick. Yeah. Like exactly what you're saying. Like I noticed that too. Even before we broke up the first time, it was like at shows where it was like everybody's constantly filming stuff and being on their phones, and then everybody wonders why we're all miserable, and it's because we're part of my theory is, and I'm not a social psychologist, so I don't know, but I'm just like, because we don't care about each other, we care about image. Yeah, we care about the image that we're presenting and the image that we're getting from others, and we decide how we like each other based on these really topical things, instead of just like being able to be in a room with people and be quiet, or let something awkward happen, or let there be a lull in the conversation. Let us get our thoughts together. Like, but we can't handle the quiet, and we're constantly distracting ourselves from the weirdness of humanity, and in doing so, we distract ourselves from all the super awesome, weird little wonderful bits that we get in between, like when we're present with each other. Yeah.
See, and for me, I struggle with OCD as well, and one of the things that I obsess over is if somebody mistook what I said, and like I could lay there. It's gotten much better now because I went to cognitive therapy and again I'm on meds and whatever. But I could lay there till 3 o'clock in the morning and finally get up and like send somebody a Facebook message and be like, hey, like a week ago I said something, and they're like, you're crazy. Like you're still thinking about that? And I'm just like, man, like I just never want to be misunderstood, I guess. That's part of.
Do you feel like you have a sensitive conscience?
Oh yeah, dude, all singers do. Lead singers are emotionally just too sensitive. At least that's my experience. All singers are just kind of like we're these weird, like hopeless romantic, poetic. I don't know. I don't know if you're like that, but
oh my God, of course I'm like that. And you prove my point, because I get on the phone, I get on this FaceTime call with you, I'm having a conversation with you, and you're recalling something I forgot that I said. So I called your band a whore.
Yeah,
that was your first experience of me. No wonder I'm constantly combing through everything that happens, terrified that I've said something or done something that hurts. Because it keeps me up at night thinking about hurting someone's feelings.
Well, just so you know, you don't have to stay up at night. It's okay. I think it's funny that you said that.
Thank you for letting me go free.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Tell me about this, and then we'll move on to something happier, I promise.
Okay.
Tell me about the worst moment that you've had in Islander. Like your dark night of the soul. It could be where you were like, you know what? If I wake up tomorrow and I feel this way, we're done. Or if so-and-so says this one thing to me, I'm out. Was it like the loss of a friendship, the loss of an opportunity was it like an internal struggle?
I think the first time that we had to ask somebody to leave our band, I can't even say kick out, because I didn't want to like kick them out.
Yeah.
We had to ask somebody to leave our band. It was a professional, purposeful, and I don't want to get into every single reason or whatever, but
it's complicated. It's complicated. Yeah.
It was for what I believe to have been good reasons at the time, and I still do believe that. And to hurt someone in that way and not want to and not mean to hurt them still eats me up. And that was hard, because I still love everybody that I've ever been in a band with. It's just, if it's not working or it's going to ruin the career or whatever, it's just, you have to do what you have to do sometimes. And for me, I'm the only original member of this band, and that's even weirder, because I think that a lot of times people look at me like this jackass that's just terrible to work with and whatnot. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody ever consider that maybe, just maybe, and I'm not calling other people like the jackasses or whatever. I just think that maybe I'm still here because I'm the responsible one. Maybe I just care that much. And
I'm positive that they hate you for saying that.
No, and I mean,
totally get where you're coming from. Nobody knows all of the different things that you're dealing with at any given point in a situation. Because there's a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling.
Yeah, lots of balls in the van.
Yeah.
Sorry. But and I'm not saying they're irresponsible or whatever. Not everybody that's left for irresponsible reasons. Like, for instance, our old bass player Zeke, he left for very responsible reasons, because, believe it or not, music doesn't pay like people think it does. Just because you're on tour with Korn doesn't mean you're a millionaire.
Right.
We've gotten tons of emails, people being like, I can't believe you guys are doing a GoFundMe or whatever because you guys tour with Korn. I'm like, oh, if you only knew what our guarantee was a lot of times.
Yeah.
But he left because he had 3 babies he needed to take care of, and a wife, and financially, in order for those babies to be okay, he needed to leave this band.
Sure.
So I think the hardest moment for me has just been, again, going back to being misunderstood, is seeing people misunderstand me when I know that I'm a loving and caring person that cares about the former members of this band. And it's not this evil thing to not be in a band with somebody anymore. I think that's kind of what eats me up.
I think that's interesting because, like I was saying before, it is kind of infinitely complicated, and I think it's easy to sort of demonize people when I have no fucking clue what went on in your band, or like member changes and people leave it, and I just sort of assume everybody has their reasons. But you also, I feel like it's a really centering practice to sit in the middle of conflict and say, look, this person derives no joy in trying to fuck my life up in some way. You know what I mean? They're doing the best that they can and trying to make the best decision that they can right now.
Yeah.
And 3 years from now, they may not feel like they made the right decision. And 10 years from now, they'll be like, who cares about those decisions? Why can't we just have a barbecue and a beer and hang out?
Absolutely.
But in the moment, it's like, sometimes it's just too much to deal with. I'm not giving you a free pass, and I'm not coming down on you either. Like because I have no idea, but I know for me personally, I have those moments where, like we had to let a manager go, and it was the worst conversation I had at that point in my life. And and looking back now, it's like it doesn't even matter. Like I don't even think about that decision in terms of whether or not it was right or wrong. I just think about it in terms of, did I respect them as a human enough? Is there a way I could have made that decision again that honored everyone involved, that made everybody feel loved, that everybody walked away from the table knowing that they were cared for, and that it was this was just complicated?
I agree. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it and put it. I think for me, the night that I wasn't sure if Islander was going to continue, I had 3 people quit on me at once while on tour, and they didn't quit like the tour. They just, we sat down and talked about the future of the band, and this is DTR. Literally, it was literally right before we walked on stage.
Oh God, no.
And
worst idea ever.
Yeah, it was before we walked on stage. So it was we had about an hour to go on before we went on, and we sat down, and the 3 guys had spoken recently, and it wasn't like this Mikey's a jerk, let's quit kind of conversation. It was more like, here's where we're at in our life, and we all kind of realize this, and we're going to help you find new people, and we're going to stay on tour until you do. Yeah. So that should tell people right there, like, okay, Mikey's not that terrible. Like, but we went on stage, and it was weird because it was like a killer show. Like I'm sitting here like, are they sure they want to leave? Because this is awesome. But I remember after the show, I got on the phone and I called Austin formerly of Mice and Men, and I already knew that he was leaving the band. We had been talking about it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had just been pushing Islander to everywhere it could go. And I knew I was friends with Of Mice and Men, and I wondered, well, maybe I should go sing for Of Mice and Men. And Austin was like, if that's what you want to do or think you should do, I'll totally support that. I'm all cool with you taking that spot. But he was like, I love Islander. And he said, I will come fill on bass. I'll help you find people. He's like, I don't think you should give up on Islander.
Yeah.
And he's the one that taught me into keeping it going. So
wow.
There's an interesting thing that not a lot of people know that was being considered.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me this. What do you think is the hardest part about being in a band with you?
Being in a band with me, probably that I'm so opinionated and so strong-willed in those opinions. First of all, the opinions that I have, whether it be an artistic expression or whatever, I, of course, like the other members of the band, believe that it's because I care.
Right.
But I think that also those are the things that make it easy to be in a band with me, because I do care, and I'm not going to leave you questioning if I'm leaving or not. Right. A lot of times people in bands can make you wonder, like, is he really in it? Is he really in it? And like with me, everybody knows it's like this dude's like relentless. Like, so I think sometimes being that relentless can be hard to be in a band with.
Sure.
Because I want to push everybody along and keep everybody's, morale up and the positivity of the band, whether we're going through financial troubles or whatever. I want everybody to know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I also think that, I don't know. It's weird talking about me being hard to get along with, but I think we're all hard to get along with sometimes. And I think that I'm just saying it out loud. I think that every single member in our band has weird quirks, and I don't think that I'm immune to that. I think I'm probably weirder than all of them.
Sure.
And most singers, we're the front man because that's what we're good at. And I'll tell you, okay, going back to guilt.
Okay.
Something I do live with is sometimes I'll get asked opportunities because I'm the singer of the band. You asked me to be on your podcast. Last week, I had a meeting in New York City that this label only wanted to fly me to and have a conversation with me and our manager.
Sure.
And within that meeting, after the meeting, I get to go and roam around New York. Or one time I had to go out for a meeting, do press in California.
Sure.
And while there, I got a free trip to Disneyland. And it sounds like I'm over here having the best time ever, but I'm actually living with this bit of like guilt, and I feel this weird, like maybe I shouldn't go do these things, even though they further the band along, because I want the guys to celebrate and be there with me. And I hate when they're not there with me. I hate when they're not the center of attention, because I know the undeniable truth of what a singer is in a band. They're the face, they're the voice, they're the spokesperson. That's part of your job instead of just being on stage. And
sure.
And it's hard for me sometimes, because I want the guys to know I don't want that attention or that credit. I want to put the attention and the credit on the guys who play music better than I do, like who can actually play an instrument and are creative in that way. And I believe I'm great at what I do, or I wouldn't do it. But I want people to know how awesome these guys are. And it's just hard sometimes when press just wants to talk to me. That makes me feel guilty.
Yeah. So that can be complicated too. I totally get that. Because I do better with people like we're not, the format of what we do here is not necessarily like, hey, come on 11 Live and push a new album. This is more of like let's talk about what it is to be a person.
Absolutely.
And then we have, all this other musical stuff that we can kind of use as a jumping off point. Mm-hmm. But the thing where I'm really interested in is all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Is all the, what are we walking around with? What is this invisible suitcases full of shit that all of us are walking around with and trying to figure out what emotional clothes to put on that day, and trying to figure out how to salvage friendships and how to give credit where credit is due, and how to be giving, but not giving so much of yourself that you have nothing left for yourself.
Right.
I think that's kind of funny. And also, maybe a little bit in your defense, sometimes it's just easier to talk to one person.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not like, I don't want to talk to so-and-so because they won't have anything interesting to say. It's just like, no, I've got 10 minutes. Let's just get a good 10 minutes with one person.
I know I'm the leader of our band. And people even say that. The labels will say, when you sign to a label, they'll go, who's the leader? Like, who do I talk to? And it's like the guys point at me, and I know I am. But it's such a, like, I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be the guy that's like, or come across like one, rather. Because I'm not being one. I don't want to come across like one in the sense of like, okay, like one time we were on tour with Amir, and Frankie, the singer, I asked him, I said, so I saw that you got the cover of Revolver magazine by yourself. Like, it's just him. And I said, how does your band feel about that? Because at the time, I always felt that guilt, because when we were first getting in the industry, I was doing interviews every day. I think the band felt kind of like, where's my voice? When do I get to speak?
Yeah.
And then when they would get it, they wouldn't necessarily know what to do with it. And I would kind of realize that's what being a front man is. It's like, you do know what to do with it. Because people would ask them, what are the songs about? And all of a sudden they come to the realization they've never even understood my lyrics or know my lyrics. which makes me feel misunderstood even more, and kind of like unappreciated, because I'm like, you don't even know what our songs are about.
God, that is I had that exact same scenario happen, and I get like our band members wouldn't care if I mentioned this. There would literally we'd be in the middle of an interview, and like somebody would ask John about like what the lyrics were, and he's told me before we go into this, we've had a conversation, and he's like, I don't want to tell you this, but like I don't even know what half the words of these songs mean. And I was like, part of it was like, it hurt me a little bit, but that's a weird dynamic within a friendship, because you're sharing so much life together. But then you've done this creative thing that you're all a part of, and you're all playing these songs, and you're doing it from a really emotional place, and maybe they're doing it to fulfill an emotional place, and you're like not quite on the same page when it comes to that stuff. I just had to like kind of blow that off and be like, well, you know what, man, my lyrics aren't going to change the world, and it's okay. And we have this thing together that and if somebody asks him what the lyrics mean, I told him after that, I was just like, make something up. I was like, because it'll be fun for us. Like, if you really don't know what the lyrics are, it'll be funnier that you kind of fall on your face in an interview, and then we could all have something to laugh about later.
Yeah, that's funny.
So that was my workaround for that. Yeah, was just like, okay. But I get the hurtful aspect of that too, because I definitely felt kind of misunderstood in that moment.
For me, the music is like, part of the passion comes from what we're all screaming together between the band and the audience. It's like, I want us to be in this moment together. And then like later on, when you find out that the people throwing guitars or banging on the drums so hard and passionately. It's like, I feel like you're using me like to get off rather than knowing what we're all screaming about.
Yeah.
And I don't feel used by the guys in the band now. And I feel like even with this new album, I actually tried to write more blatant. So it was just more like blatant. I mean, it hasn't come out yet, so nobody knows the songs, but like for instance, okay, here's a perfect example. The song "I Want Sushi," it's one of our new songs. It's actually pretty deep, and people look at me and think like, oh, like that's stupid. He just wrote a song about food, and I'm like, this whole song is about being a starving artist and how something as simple as sushi on tour, just you can't get it. And like I just talk about how like the struggle of like wanting to make punk rock music or whatever, and yet you're not even verified on Twitter, and like you don't care. Like that's kind of what the song's about, because it says, you know, there's not even a blue check next to my name. I'm not into music for the money or the fame. And it's just saying like, I'm here to like actually make art, and instead the takeaway is this guy wrote a song about food. It's like, oh man. Yeah, check this out. I'll show you some stuff. Like I got it sitting next to me. I was in New York the other day on a business meeting for the band, and I felt bad being the only one there. And I'm at the Nintendo store while on this business meeting. So I went and I started getting all these little gifts for the band, because I was like, I want them to know like I'm thinking about them, and you know what I mean? Like I'm not just there and like, I get to do this too. Like I'm actually there, and I'm like, this will be so much more fun with my bandmates, my friends.
Had your friends, If you were doing it with friends, I totally get it. Do you feel like the guys in the band trust you to represent their interests?
I hope so. I think so. I think I cultivate that. I think it's up to the singer to actually cultivate that, because when people say like, well, what are your influences, instead of just going, my influences are, I'm like, well, we come from a different place of like, everybody listens to different stuff, and I'll name like, you know, our drummer's favorite band is May, and our guitarist loves August Burns Red, and my brother loves everything that I love because he's the one that introduced me to it. And I think that I think it's about the singer cultivating that, and sometimes you have to reach out and grab the spotlight, and you have to remove it off yourself physically, or you know what I mean, like, and put it on them. And that's what I try to do in interviews. I'm always like, well, when I sit down to write a song, like Eric comes up with these sick riffs, and I'm always trying to like put it back on them, because I feel weird. But at the same time, when we first became a band, we have different members now, and I love the guys I used to be in a band with, but I started feeling like I was constantly dumbing myself down or watering myself down and slowing down sometimes so that they could feel like they were a part of something. And I realized if I could just hustle and become friends with these people in the industry or whatever, I could help get us to the next place we needed to be. And I saw this meme one time that said, you know, don't water yourself down for people that want you to be less. And I started realizing it's not doing a service to the band if I'm not being the full, you know, crazy Mikey lead singer that I can be. And so now I just kind of look at it and I'm like, cool. Like if you guys understand the business aspect of this, you're going to let me go do these interviews, and you're going to understand that. Oh yeah. Going back to Frankie from Mirror. Okay. He got the cover of the magazine, right? Sure. So this is what I asked him. I was like, does your band feel any form of jealousy or anything? Cause that's what I started wondering if my band was going to feel, cause I was getting all these interviews and stuff. And, he said, bro, my success is their success. And I was like, whoa. Like,
I wonder if they would say the same thing.
Well, considering their new band, when they all quit, didn't do as well, and Amir's still doing great with new members, and Frankie's the only guy there, I think that he was the success, and now it's gone.
Awesome.
I don't know, but again, you would have to ask them what they think about me, because I don't want to go and say like what they think about me or whatever. But
I think that's safe. Yeah. I think that's a safe answer.
I think it is up to me as a singer and a front man to cultivate, you know, what I see is what the band needs. Even like I've tried to help us get times on like once a week where we talk about our emotions and what we're feeling like and stuff. Cause you know, you look around and all these singers and all these people in general are committing suicide now. It's like a trend.
Yeah.
And I want us to keep an open dialogue of what we're dealing with, because being on the road, you get lonely and you start not being able to stand the people that you love. And it's like, even the way that they walk or something, it's like, why is the way that they eat ice cream bothering me right now? Like, it's not even a big deal. Yeah. But it's like anytime you're around somebody for long periods of time, little things are going to bother you about their personality that really shouldn't. And
it's not them. It's
not.
you. It is you becoming a little bitch about everything happening in your life. Like, that's true. That's true for me. Maybe I'm projecting a little bit. When everybody starts to annoy me, when everybody's getting on my nerves.
You said you're being a little bitch. No, yeah. I'm
the problem. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think sometimes everybody in the band just has to take a step back and realize, like, I don't think anybody came into the van with a purpose to get on each other's nerves. It's just part of being human.
Yes. That is so true. So switch gears and tell me about the best moment in your band. Just elation that you haven't topped again.
For me, this is funny because this doesn't even have to do with the band, but it does. Because of the band, because of touring and doing all this stuff and being able to go and meet people that you never thought you were going to meet.
Yeah.
Sting, the pro wrestler, came to one of our shows simply because I wanted to meet him. His manager brought him. Yeah. And that was the coolest moment for me. I'm a huge Sting fan. He's had a big impact on my life as far as we share the same faith, and he's just a really cool dude. And I wanted to meet him really bad. And now we're friends. And anytime we're in Dallas, he'll take us out to eat or whatever. And I'm like,
I love that.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing that's happened to me. Also, I grew up, being a fan of certain bands, like seeing them on TRL and POD and Korn or whatever. And it's like, now I'm friend. Not only did I go on tour with those bands, but we're good friends. And And I never expected any of that to happen. And that's the coolest thing, I guess, just getting to experience the little things that before this was a business, when I was in middle school and high school and wanted to play music and said, I want to play a show with POD. And now it's like, okay, well, I've done like 4 tours with them. It's like, that's just, it's cool.
I love it.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like checking my notes really quick because I even wrote down Robot Rock. So we started talking about that at the beginning.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Did you ever hang out at a venue called the Powerhouse back in the day?
We played one show at the Powerhouse, but it was, I have a feeling that it was kind of after its heyday.
It probably was. Because I was going during its heyday. And who were you guys with at that show?
It was us. It was another band called The Switch that my friend Rob is in. People on the podcast have probably heard of his band. And I think Davey's band, Days Off Screen, came and played that show. Because
there was a time period when Powerhouse was like, it's kind of what cultivated the scene of Greenville, South Carolina. Like, they had MXPX and 90 Pound Wuss and POD. And before Phoenix joined Linkin Park, I saw his band Tasty Snacks there. Like, it was just kind of a thing I would go to every Monday night just because the shows were so cheap. And again, going back to like the old school Tooth and Nail days, that there were actually good bands playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know if you had ever had any experience with that place at all.
You know, I've talked about this before. Maybe you can relate. It was, I don't know what it was about us. Like, I feel like I've learned how to be more sociable over the years. But when we were first starting out, nobody gave a shit about our band, particularly in Greenville. It was like, I don't know what it was, but just like nobody, I mean, you might know what it was. Maybe everybody was talking shit about us to you, and you actually do know why nobody liked our band.
I actually don't. I don't know. Nobody ever talked any of that to me. I do remember thinking like, man, this band's from Greenville and they're bigger than that, and they don't play local shows around here or anything. And I always thought, well, that must just be the key. But after doing Islander, when we were coming up in Greenville, some people would kind of care for a second. And then I kid you not, as soon as we jumped on tour with Papa Roach, I started hearing all these rumors of kids being like, man, Islanders sold out. They're not real. They're not whatever. And And it's like Greenville was just kind of like, oh, that's not ours. And I'm like, wait, like you guys made me.
Yeah. It's so weird because I feel like we cut our teeth on a lot of like the weird little pop-up shows and stuff that would happen around Greenville, but there was never a moment where it was like, we could book a show in Greenville and like 500 people would be there. And then, because we have a hometown or a place to go to or a place where it felt like family and it felt really friendly for us. And then just like, because we started touring really like in 2004, and then we just kind of didn't stop for a long time, and maybe hit up Greenville 3 times in like 7 years of touring, and it was just because they weren't into what we were doing. I guess it's not like I feel hurt by that. It's just that we have bands in Asheville that are amazing, and I think they should be much bigger than they are. And I'm like, whenever I have a chance, I want to go see. Like, I'm constantly telling people, you should check out this band. Like, I feel a sense of pride, like of bands that they're from, or even from Greenville. Like you guys. I'm always like, have you heard of Islander? Because they're actually like Greenville guys, and yeah. So it's I don't know. Like,
I think a lot of it is because, and I could be wrong, but it's when people grow up seeing you be the normal guy that you actually are, they almost think it's phony whenever they see you doing anything bigger, because they're like, I know who they actually are. They work at so-and-so spot down the street or whatever. And when I go on tour, it's like, I can go do an in-store signing or something. But if I did that in Greenville, the people that would come know me, and they're like, "This is stupid. I'm not going to ask for a picture
come to make fun of you."
Yeah. So I think that's what some of it is, because they're like, "I went to school with him. He's a dork," and it's like maybe that's why it's not as cool in your hometown. I don't know.
Yeah, I just love that. I think I'm always trying to get back to whatever that weird sort of sense of family was surrounding that whole like tooth and nail genre. Not to make it sound dumb or
man,
anything,
it's not
weird.
Dumb, dude. It's gone, and music has changed. Everybody's on a click track. Everybody's on tracks in general.
Yep.
Back then there were musicians, and I hate to sound like, back in my day or something like that.
We were inspired by them.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like a prepackaged thing. It felt like, no, this is a real, like, people are moving air out of real instruments and like sharing a piece of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And people still talk so fondly about those times because there was something special. Yeah. There was something different in the air about it. And now when I go to shows, I always tell my wife this. I'm not sure, and again, maybe I would, but I'm not completely sure that if I were a 13-year-old kid in 2018, that I would have fallen in love with music, because the things that I love about it are gone.
Wow.
So
that's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy, man.
That's the most depressing thing you've said the whole time we've talked.
I'm not sure if it would be something I would have fallen in love with, because the things that music, represent now, I don't feel like it's an extension of what's actually going on in people's lives or whatever. I think it's more of an extension of just the commercialism of everything. Everything just kind of is like, well, here's how we're going to sell this to these kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hate that about music. And that Islander, we try not to be that. But again, you're going to be on a record label or whatever. There's going to be a little bit of that where the label's like, you need to work with this producer. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it's like, I remember when it was just, man, do you think we can play a show so-and-so someday? So.
I know. But part of that is like, your band is in its infancy at one point. And then the longer that you're in the band, like the band grows up, like it becomes a revenue generating entity. It becomes a business. It becomes taxable, there's all these grown up shit that happens to a band that you have to deal with. You have to figure out a way to do it. I think there are bands like what I've seen you guys do is I feel like people gravitate towards, this is just me just like freeballing
right now. You're good. You're good.
I feel like people gravitate towards the intensity and the honesty of what you're trying to express, which is inspired by what you were inspired by as a kid. It was that sense of community. It was like, can we all get in a room together and sweat and like share this moment and share this like really human experience together? Because that's what, like, the connection, like the performer, the crowd connection, we become something greater than we are, than the sum of its parts, sort of a thing. Like, I feel like that's what I'm looking for in shows. And I feel like when I've seen you play, I've seen that expressed in you. That might not be what's going on internally with you, but that's the impression that I get. But then at the same time,
no, you actually hit the nail on the head, man. A lot of times I'm trying to share something that I grew up with and show the kids that maybe don't know how special this could be. That's why I let them on stage, even though, you know, so many people are against like letting people on stage. I'm like, have the stage filled up. I've gotten in trouble at festivals because you can feel the stage actually bouncing because there's hundreds of kids on the stage, and which is, it's probably not safe, and it probably should not happen too often because I can see it going viral for the wrong reasons someday. I don't want that to happen. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I definitely want kids to know, like, quit looking at us like we're a movie and you just brought your popcorn to it.
Right.
Like, you're the movie. Be the experience. Yeah. Because the show's only going to be as good as much fun as you guys want to have. That's how the show's going to be, either good or bad.
As much as you're willing to put your ego aside is how much fun you'll have here.
Exactly.
Like, but to my point, what I was saying was I was actually getting to a compliment. I'm sorry. No, of you. But at the same time, I feel like what I've seen, your branding looks great. Your cover art looks great. Like the way that you guys present yourselves as a business, like what I've seen, it doesn't, you know what I mean? You care. Like, you care about having an image in as much as, like, we want to be accessible. Like, we need to have an image of what we are so that people can kind of figure out whether or not they want to give it a second look. And I feel like what I've seen you guys do that, and I would call that the business end of stuff, of recognizing that, like, yes, to keep this thing going, we are a product and we have to figure out how to package this product so that all of it has heart and soul and doesn't just become packaging. You know what I mean? Right. There's actually something in there. There's actually some substance to it.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Thank you very much for noticing.
No, yeah. I don't know. Man. I've had like the best time ever, and we've gone like an hour and a half, and I don't want to take up too much of your chill time.
No, you're good. You're good, man. Okay. I'm chilling all day, so you're good.
That's awesome. Is there anything that we didn't hit on that maybe you were thinking about and I was being too wordy, too mouthy?
No.
That you want to talk about?
How's 11D7 doing?
We're doing great. I mean, like we got, I don't know if you followed what we do at all. We got back together this past year.
Yeah, I've seen some of that.
Made a new record. Fans seem to really like it. It kind of blew us away because we were kind of out. We were sort of AWOL for 3 or 4 years, and then we're just like, I miss it. Can we figure out a way to do all the fun stuff and put aside all the bullshit?
Yeah.
And like,
are you guys going to tour anytime soon?
We are. So I'm actually, like, right behind me, I'm working on some live programming stuff that we really do want to do some shows in the future. And we've got a few irons in the fire on that. But you know how it is. Nice. It's like, we never want to announce something until we can be like, okay, we have everything set in stone and it will happen. And this is going to be our thing. But that's exactly where our headspace is right now, is
awesome,
figuring out what the live rig looks like.
So. You guys should jump on some of these MXPX Weekend Warrior things they keep doing.
Oh my God! If 5-iron wasn't eating up that bill,
I know, like, man.
Everywhere they go,
it's always 5-iron or slick shoes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. It was.
Which I love slick shoes, but yeah,
it's nuts. Did I tell you that I was actually in a band with some of the 5-iron guys?
No,
and Leonore. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What's the band called? It's
called The Fast Feeling. We put out a record in 2015. I would just like fly back and forth to Denver, and we made a record. Dope. It was like me and Scott and Andy and Leonore, and it was super fun.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool to get to work with them, because you grow up listening to people, and then you're like infinitely, never mind. It's complicated. I feel like I've never really been that person that's like, just, I love celebrity for the sake of celebrity. If there's if there's a songwriter or somebody that I love what they're doing artistically, I'm trying to the point where I just want I want to understand what that is. I want to ask them about that. I'm not necessarily interested in like, what's it like not being able to walk through Walmart without?
No,
fuck that.
I don't care about that either. For me,
Who cares?
I've always cared about meeting people that like actually inspire me to do what I do.
Yes, yes, that you already have this
Yeah.
sort of pre-existing connection with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a ton of fun, and then they just started doing a bunch of shows and stuff. So I don't know, maybe we'll make another record, maybe not, but it was
Awesome.
It was super fun to work with them. I'm a huge fan of Scott's songwriting. Like all the new Five Iron stuff is just, I think he's phenomenal.
Send me the name of that. I want to check it out.
We'll do.
I want to.
Let's stay in touch, please.
Yeah,
and,
let's go to Denny's and sit at the same table.
Wait, do I have to send you like apartment classifieds from Greenville to get you guys back down here?
Dude, we're looking at getting home sometime within a year. So I'll be back so we can kick it, man.
Well, we have a guest room here in Asheville. If you're ever coming through, drinks on me.
I love Asheville, man. Heck yeah. I love it. Get some kombucha.
Awesome, dude.
Thanks so much for the talk, bro.
Dude, and, anytime. Hey, send me the new Islander stuff when it comes out.
Yeah. And I'll send it to you before that.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it. It's going to be great.
All right. Love you, bro. I'll talk
Love
to you
too,
soon.
man. Peace.
Peace.
See ya.